What's happening, my fellow geeks and geekettes? Welcome to a brand new episode of Cosplay Chris. And today I'm going to be showing you guys the process of cleaning up, priming, painting, weathering, and finishing a resin 3D printed grappling gun based on Robert Pattinson's grappling gun from the upcoming film The Batman. Now, first off, a massive shout out to the very talented Arkham Armories for designing and sending this file to me. You can hit him up and see his other amazing 3D works, and also a massive thank you to my good buddy James Phelan, also known as Feel Good Cosplay, for printing the grappling gun itself. Gentlemen, thank you so much. This is definitely a collaborative effort. James is a phenomenal prop maker. He had the amazing opportunity to work on The Matrix Resurrections. We also both worked on Thor Love and Thunder during last year. James is currently up here in Sydney working on a production that is under wraps at the moment, but when it's out there, holy shit, it's going to be an amazing credit to add to his resume. Like I said, this print itself has been resin printed on a Photon Mono X. These are an amazing little resin printer. They truly are workhorses, and what I love about resin printing, the details you can capture in a print literally right off the bed. It is brilliant, especially when it comes to like little screws, washers, rivets, bolts, and stuff like that, which this file does. Arkham Armories have done an amazing job trying to capture the aesthetic of the grapple gun, even though there is such little reference out there. We're pretty much relying on set shots, even reference from the Prime 1 statue, and I think he's done a phenomenal job with designing this file. So the first step is I'm going to show you guys the raw print in all its form. James had printed it in 3 different pieces, and then I will explain the entire process to you guys with some shitty commentary. Now, stay to the end of the video because I have a surprise to show you guys. Something turned up yesterday that is going to be a welcoming addition to the suit. It's the same make and model thing that was on Pattinson's bat suit, so stick around. So with that being said, let's get to it. Oh, you guys know what time it is. It is time for some shitty commentary. Here is the print right off the bat. Pun intended. The detail on this is beautiful. As I mentioned before, James had split this file into 3 pieces with that stem there that is connecting the barrel. Now, there are some holes in the print, and that was the only way James was able to properly resin print it. I don't know the technical side of it. James can explain it to you. But what we have to do is make this a solid piece. So what we're going to be doing is filling this piece with resin. But we got to duct tape up those holes. Otherwise, we are going to have a mess all over the floor with that beautiful supercast resin. So I'm just getting some duct tape with little squares, much like what you put on your face if you cut yourself shaving, and just taping up all those holes. So we've got it there, mounted in a vise with the grip not too hard because we don't want to damage the detail, but we're going to be using supercast from Barnes. You guys have seen me use this multiple times. This is a 100 to 100 mixed ratio resin. It takes a couple of minutes to cure and about an hour before demold. So I think from memory, I had to do 2 batches because I filled up the main body of the grappling gun. I realized, oh geez, I need more resin. And just keep an eye out for certain parts of the gun. There were little areas that decided to leak out. Now I'm properly and permanently embedding that little stem there once it was filled up nearly to the top of the grappling gun with the resin. That's just going to fuse it all together. Now after the resin had cured, I took off some parts around the handle, but I'm just removing those other pieces of duct tape there. Now like I said, some pieces did leak out. That's totally fine. We also do have an air bubble there, but here it didn't fill the void properly. And that's not a major drama. This stuff happens. It was only a little void that it didn't fill. Now I'm just gonna get, not this time some cheap and nasty super glue, but some good old Loctite that I just had lying around instead of the cheap and nasty stuff. Cheap and nasty stuff works fine too. And we're just gonna permanently bond the barrel in place. But what we've got to do next is fill in that seam there. So we're just going to be using some Selleys Builder's Bog, and we squeeze our hardener into the main batch. Now, because it was a hot day when I was doing this, my working time was, 4 minutes, if that. So I had to be real quick and dirty, and that's why there's not much footage of me properly doing it. My bloody hair's in the way, but I kind of just had to concentrate and do it, and I'm like, okay, they kind of get the idea. So once that's done, you can start sanding it and filing it. And the majority of cleaning this thing up was sandpaper and files. Like I got a little file kit there, a Trojan file kit, and we're also sanding back the excess resin. Now I am taping back up the barrel, because that had holes in it too. That was the only way it could properly print, and filling up the remainder of the gun there with the resin, with the supercast resin. You can give it a couple of hours to dry because it does get quite hot, because that's how resin cures. It cures with a chemical reaction with heat, and that thing was hot for a couple of hours because of the heat outside. You know, we're still summer here. Now, I'm just showing you guys those little dots there. That's actually the support material from the bed, from the printer bed. So I'm just going in with my file and doing some general cleanup, just some general housekeeping, and there are minimal print lines on this piece. I can't stress that enough. That's what I love, the minimal print lines. So I'm just really going in and getting rid of those holes where the support material essentially was. If you've ever seen a raw print that's been resin printed right off the bed, it's got all those little stems holding it up. It's like little legs and it looks really gnarly, but you are left with little nubs and little indents that you have to get rid of. So this is just general sanding and just cleaning everything up, make sure everything's smooth, and just blending those holes where the resin is filled in back into the actual handle of the grappling gun itself. Now, to clean off the excess and clean all the dust off, I'm just spraying it with some isopropyl alcohol and giving it an isopropyl alcohol bath. It will not affect the resin in the slightest. It will help clean it and prep it for priming. But before we go to, you know, standard priming, we're going to be using a filler primer, just finishing off that other side of the grappling gun there, and that will also get rid of the dust. But you also want to brush away the dust before you spray on your isopropyl alcohol, because some bits of dust can get wedged in there and caked into certain crevices. So I've got a super cheap auto spray putty. I've used this for the longest time on 3D prints, and this is just going to fill in those little niggling print lines that are sticking around that sometimes you can't get to because of certain details, and you just seriously need one good beauty coat with a resin print. Usually if it's printed in high def, you only need one good beauty coat of a primer filler, and that just kind of brings everything together and makes everything nice, smooth, and clean. Now I'm just going to get a flat grey primer from Rust-Oleum. The reason why I'm doing this is because we're going to be using a Rust-Oleum flat black, and it's one of those things where even though most times out of 10 some brands won't clash, there are times where brands will clash. And I just wanted to have a Rust-Oleum primer to complement the Rust-Oleum flat black that we're going to be using, and this is going to be our main base color. What I've learnt with spraying primers and flat blacks, gloss blacks, all that, especially with Rust-Oleum, leave it for a good 24 hours at the very least. Even though we're in the middle of summer, leave it for 24 hours for it to properly cure. And that way, as you can see right there, I'm able to handle it without any fingerprints, thumbprints, stuff like that embedding itself in the paint. It's fully cured. So what I'm going to do now is grab some silver leaf rub and buff, and we're going to start to go over the areas that have silver on them, that have that kind of gunmetal grey. It's a very odd paint scheme, Pattinson's grappling gun. To be honest, I wouldn't say it's underwhelming. It's kind of, it just doesn't have that oomph factor. Nonetheless, I'm working with the reference that I've got, and I'm just dry brushing over all the areas. Now you see here, I'm really laying it on thick with the handle of the gun itself, and this is a complete waste of time because I'm going to be covering this up later, but I've just decided to include it because, you know, mistakes happen when you do stuff like this. Now, when you're dry brushing on rub and buff, you really want to have as little as possible on the brush, and I was going for that kind of gunmetal grey textured look with this grappling gun, so this was very touch and go, and also just highlighting the little screws, bolts, and little dials there on the grappling gun itself. And that wasn't dry brushing on, that was just literally just painting the silver rub and buff on. Okay, so this is where we're at. Now, as you see, I've gone back in and covered up that silver panel on the handle of the gun because looking at reference, it isn't actually silver. It's kind of just weathered. So next up, we're going to go in with some Kiwi black shoe polish that has not been watered down, and we are just going to be brushing this on all those silver accents on the gun itself, and no dabbing away the excess, none of that. And what this does, when it sits, it gets in all those nooks, crannies, that beautiful detail, and just really emphasizes that nice gun metal gray look. This was kind of a spur of the moment technique that I came up with on the spot. I originally was going to dab away the excess, but I loved how the shoe polish looked just sitting there, and once it dries, it looks cracker. It looks $1 trillion. Now I'm just gonna grab some Lemire Pewter. This is an acrylic paint with some metallic shavings mixed in, and I'm just doing the pipe section there just to kind of differentiate the overall look of it. Now for the rust, we're just gonna grab some burnt sienna, not watered down, and just going into random nooks and crannies, because I figured this thing is so weathered from being out in the rain with the bat suit, it's gotta have some rust on it. That's just the way I see it. This suit is very damaged, beaten up, and I just think adding a little bit of rust with some acrylic burnt sienna really brings out those beautiful details. Now what's left after that is we've got to seal this up with a matte sealer, because I just think there should be no gloss on this. It needs to have a matte sealer. That way you're going to see all those beautiful details and it's going to make them all pop. Now I did manage to find a new matte sealer. This is Winsor & Newton. I use their oil colors a lot, and this is a beautiful matte sealer. Give it about 10 minutes to dry, and then we're good for the final reveal. And boom, there we go guys, all done and dusted. I'm very, very happy with the end result of this, and I definitely do love the added rust effects. Again, it's one of those things where a prop has to tell a story, or a costume has to tell a story, and it just makes sense that, you know, Pattinson's out in the rain. He's beating the shit out of bad guys all night long, soaked in the rain, the suit's soaked, the grappling gun's soaked, and a little bit of rust would develop on certain areas of the piece itself. So I am very happy with how this has turned out, and that matte spray as well. That's definitely something I'm going to be using in the future, because it is very hard to find a matte spray. Just give you guys a good look at all those details. And again, a massive thank you to Arkham Armories for designing this beautiful file, and my good buddy James Phelan, aka Feel Good Cosplay, for 3D printing this thing on his beautiful little resin printer. Now, I told you guys to stick around to the end of the video, because I have something that is going to complement this piece. The same make and model drop holster has arrived. This is the Condor Tornado drop holster. I'm just literally rattling this off from the top of my head. The tag's over there. Wait, hang on. I got the tag right here. Yes, the Condor Tornado drop holster has arrived all the way from the UK. This is the same make and model drop holster that Pattinson sports on his batsuit. So in the big build video of putting this batsuit together, I'll be including customizing this thing and swapping them out for these magnetic clasps. Now, not these ones in particular. I did buy these, but these are the incorrect ones. You need the ones with the matte black clasp there, not the stainless steel ones, because then we have to go in with some light sandpaper and just scuff away that matte black on it, revealing the stainless steel underneath. But essentially, we're going to be swapping out these clasps here for these ones here. Now what I'm going to do is open this up, pop the grappling gun in, give you guys a good idea of how it's going to look. It's one of those things where, because the pipes are quite fragile, I just don't want to jam this thing in. So we've got to open her up. There we go. Give you guys a good idea of how it's all going to look. So again, very happy with the end result. Really excited to hit the finish line with this batsuit just in time for the premiere of The Batman. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Again, a massive thank you to Arkham Armories and Feel Good Cosplay. I will leave their Instagrams down below. Go check them out. Go show them some love. And with that being said, wherever you are in the world, please have yourselves an absolute cracker of a day. I hope you're well. Hope you're happy. Be merry. Be silly. And until next time, geeks, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.